Welcome to today's webinar, which has been designed by Deb and myself for buyers agents who are buying properties in WA for their clients. Now, we know that there's been a lot of changes that are happening now and also plan to be in the future. And Deb and I really believe that it's important for buyers agents to know exactly what your investors are going to be experiencing, because the laws are different everywhere, and we want to make sure that you are fully across what you need to know. So I want to introduce Deb Gidman. She is the owner founder of Resident Property. She is also a trainer with Aspire, and obviously as a trainer comes with a wealth of knowledge. Deb, welcome.
Thank you very much, Ash.
I'm really excited to have you join, because you, being someone who focuses on the south of Perth area, is that right?
Yes.
So
yeah.
what suburb?
Anything south of the river, really. So I'm based down in the sort of city of Rockingham. So that is my main core area. But yeah, anything south of the river, I can help you with.
Excellent. And also being someone who runs the business, owns the business and runs the business, is going to be really important for some investors as well. So for those investors that you might have that really want that one-on-one service, Deb is definitely the person for that, because she actually runs the property management department personally herself. So your clients will get all of her and no assistance, which is great. So that's really good for you to know. That, I guess I mentioned that, Deb, because one thing I find with clients is that they often don't know what to expect when they're choosing a property manager, and they don't know who to ask. And so it's really important to say, hey, if you come with us, you're going to get a team, or if you come with us, you get me.
Yes, exactly. And there's no right or wrong in this sort of industry. It's just there are differences. And I had somebody ask me a really educated question the other day. What happens if you're sick? Great question. It is just me. If I break my leg, what is my backup plan? And I do have a backup plan, but it's a different model to yourself, who has got quite a few ladies working for you. And if somebody is away sick, so the rest of the team just pick up the pace and off you go. So yeah, some really key questions to know when you're asking, because it's relevant to what type of service you're looking for.
Yeah, 100%. So let's get into the rental changes that are happening in WA, and I'll just see whether it's worth sharing my screen. Let me just quickly bring it up. So if you can see that, I want to bring this to people's attention, because as a buyer's agent, if you go and have a look at the commerce.wa.gov website, it's actually providing some really simple instructions. So if you don't feel comfortable giving, advising the client, maybe tell your clients to refer to this website to get a little bit more information. Maybe you might like to share it as part of your marketing to them, or pop it into any newsletters you've got. But we're sort of going to go through this a little bit, Deb. So the first one is the rent bidding ban. So that started a couple of weeks ago. So do you want to just talk through that?
Yeah, sure. So the rent bidding ban means that we can no longer ask for more rent than the advertised rent. And I don't believe that many agents in WA were doing this previously. In fact, I was taught that it was law incorrectly. That just goes to show that when you go into some agencies, really, sometimes the older PMs train the new PMs, and that sort of inherited knowledge comes down. And honestly, I thought that it was law. I now know that it wasn't. It was best practice. But I don't know many agents that have been doing this in WA, but it's almost going to work beneficially for us as agents to have this as law, because now we can say to owners, we cannot do rent. We cannot ask for more rent than the advertised rent. So if you're advertising the property for $500 a week and somebody comes in and says, oh, I really need this property, you cannot say to them, oh, well, if you offered $550, you'd probably get it. That's rent bidding, and that is what we're not allowed to encourage or entice at all. The tenants are still allowed to offer more rent if they feel that that's something that they want to do. And again, I always educate my owners that sometimes that might be a red flag, that might not be the best application. We'll look at all applications on their merit and decide number one priority is not who's asked for more rent. But we're also not allowed to advertise on sort of realestate.com or in our marketing to say offers over or rent from or rent between, anything like that. I think, Ash, we saw something on our property managers Facebook group the other day where a property manager was asking for advice on this because the owner was insisting that she did it and she didn't feel comfortable doing it. Well, this is actually going to help property managers really give that information to owners and say, actually, it's against the law now and we are not allowed to do that. So I'm really happy with this particular one. I don't see any problems.
Excellent. Yeah. And so, like Deb said, if your investor gets a couple of applications, one's offered more, one's offered 500, one's offered 550. As an investor, you can't go back and ask that property manager to say, hey, I really like the $500 a week application. Can you ask if they can go up to 550? That's not allowed, but yes, you are allowed to accept that higher one if you wish. So that's very good, because I actually think, to be honest, that a lot of property managers are going to get this wrong. And what I don't want to happen is investors or buyer's agents to be up against a property manager who says, oh, they offered 550 per week, but you're not allowed to take that because we were only advertising for 500. You actually can. So just push back on that if a property manager hasn't. And I don't necessarily want to say that, I don't want to talk ill of property managers that maybe have got that wrong. It's just that it's a new law and some officers might not have been trained in it enough to be able to understand it. So it is a new law. So just be mindful that that there might be some people that are still learning. That's why Deb and I felt the importance of making sure that that the buyers agents and the investors are educated enough to be able to know when to push back lightly and just say, oh, actually, I'm going to go back to the DEMA's website and just pull up that evidence and just show that to the property manager there. The other thing that I wanted to talk about, that this has come up, and I'll mention it in case you guys have clients that have got granny flats. We came across a property where the owners just purchased it and it has the house at the front and then the granny flat, but our investor didn't want to pay for 2 ads and they just wanted 1 ad. Because they weren't sure whether there was going to be one tenant that rented both or one for the back, one for the front. And so we were going to advertise it like, 400 to 600 per week, because it was like 400s for the back and 600s for the front. And we were told we couldn't do that. It had to be 2 separate ads with fixed prices. So I thought I might just mention that for the investors and buyers agents who do have that granny flat situation, the property manager won't be able to advertise a range, just 1 fixed price or 2 separate ads.
Yeah, that's a good point, Ash. I didn't think of that.
All righty. Next one we have is the retaliatory action.
Yes.
What are your thoughts on this one?
Well, I mean, I suppose I heard Trish from DEMA's talking some time back, and I think if we get a bit of context behind it, it might make a bit more sense as to what it is and why it's there. So she was explaining that tenants a lot of the time don't feel safe and secure in their own home. Now, ultimately, it is their home, and whilst investors are running a business and it's transactional, for a tenant it is very emotional, and so this has been brought in to try and protect tenants, to allow them to feel more secure in their property. So, like it says, if a tenant thinks that their rent is being increased deliberately to promote or to push them out of the property, or they've asked for a few maintenance items and the owner is now gone, that's enough, I'm getting them out, that can be deemed retaliatory action, and that we are not allowed to do. So what we need to be doing is making sure that our owners are educated that maintenance is definitely part of their responsibility, and to factor that in when they're purchasing a property, that they are going to have maintenance come up. I did a little video a little while ago about when a property has been owner occupied and then it is to become a rental property. You may find that there is a lot of maintenance in that first 6 to 12 months because owners will generally put up with a lot of staff. And then it becomes a tenanted property and the tenant is not going to put up with that. So just be mindful that educating the owners when they take over a property that they may have a lot of maintenance. Now, if the tenant is reporting that maintenance, which is their responsibility to do, and the owner gets annoyed and says, do you know what, Deb, serve them notice, let's get them out, let's get a fresh tenant in, they're asking for too much maintenance, that can be deemed retaliatory action, and that is what we're not allowed to do anymore. So it's, in my eyes, again, another good law that has come in. I don't see there being any issues with it as long as we're educating the owners, everybody involved, as long as there's education involved in it.
Yeah, I have to admit, I don't think that I've really had a situation where I have had an owner say to me, oh, get them out, they're asking too much maintenance. Like, I don't think from memory that's really happened. So I'm not overly concerned by it. But
I've had it.
I've
had it. Yeah, for sure.
I actually think personally that it's going to be a very hard thing for people to prove, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And we'll only sort of test the waters once it comes in, you know, I mean, obviously it's in effect now. So if somebody does believe that they've been asked to leave because of, you know, maybe they've asked for too much, or maybe the landlord has just gone, do you know what, I don't want them in my property anymore. Let's just increase the rent. Let's get them out because they can't afford it. If they do believe that that is the case, then it is going to be referred to a commissioner. And the commissioner will then make the decision about whether they think it's retaliatory or not. So I don't think that we're going to know the extent of this until maybe, you know, well, maybe 6 or 12 months down the line, until someone actually tests it.
Yeah. The other thing that I think about with it is that, like, the rent increase one, I can't see being a huge issue because in WA we can still give notice to vacate for no reason. So if you had a problem with the tenant, you would just give them notice to vacate.
But if they believe it's retaliatory, then I would definitely say that the tenants would test the waters on this and see how it pans out.
So moral of the story is, don't be an investor that's going to be testing this new rule, because you'll be used as an example.
Yeah, absolutely. Don't. Yeah.
All right, next one. I like this one, 12-month rent rises. So for me, it was always best practice. Well, I personally only like doing rent increases every 12 months because we were doing 12-month leases. I hate doing 6-month reviews in a 12-month lease because you've got to set it. I felt like it was really uncomfortable to have those conversations when you've just first met a tenant, first going in a property and already talking about a rent increase. So for me personally, I never like doing it anyway. And I generally encourage my clients to just have, if you want a 12-month lease, have a fixed 12-month lease with no rent increase. If you want to increase your rent in 6 months, do a 6-month lease. That was always my attitude. So what are your thoughts on this one?
Oh, look, I've got a lot of owners, a lot of, you know, I had previously worked in agencies where there's been a large rent roll. So I've got a lot of experience in this. And I think owners get it in their mind that they want to increase that revenue. I mean, it's ultimately a business, right? They want to increase that rent. However, like you say, sitting down with a tenant when you've just advertised the rent for 600 a week and going, so it is going to be 600 a week, but there could be a rent increase to 650 after 6 months. You're already moving the goalposts and they haven't even moved in. You know, I personally don't like 6-month increases. Again, there's also a lot of room for error in them because you have to serve 60 days notice of the rent increase within that 12-month period. So you've got to do it at month 4. So they've been in that property for 4 months and they're getting a rent increase notice. And then it takes place at 6 months. And then, you know, at the 12-month mark again, you're negotiating another increase. It just, no, to be honest, you know, a couple of people have said, oh, but the increases are going to be so dramatic after 12 months. I think I'd rather have, if I was a tenant, a 12-month set period of knowing what my rent's going to be, and then I'll decide at the end of the 12 months whether I can afford the next increase. So again, as long as the owners are educated, I don't see that there'll be any problems with this one.
No, and I just want to draw attention to this clause here. So this will be applicable for your investor clients that have already got an increase set in place. So with this law, this one's likely to start in July. I don't know whether an actual fixed date's been set, but let's say it's July. So let's say that you have your investor has a tenant that's got a lease from March to March, and there is a 6-month rent review due in September. What you might want to get on top of is making sure that they speak to their property manager beforehand, because if you've only put in a $10, for example, rent increase for September for that 6-month mark, you're not going to, you can go ahead with that rent increase because it's already been pre-arranged, but your client won't be able to increase the rent for 12 months after that, which means that you've gone with a little $10 increase, but it's going to affect when your lease comes up for renewal. You're not going to be able to do another rent increase. So if your client's done a small rent increase, you might want to consider just voiding that one and then just waiting till the lease expires to do your proper decent one back in March. But I would be having that conversation with your property or with the property manager prior to make sure they don't automatically send out that notice to implement that rent review. So that's where this is going to affect your clients. And again, just refer back to this, but make sure that your investors get on top of that before, like ASAP, whether you do want to implement that or not, because I would be annoyed if $10 a week was implemented and it affected me increasing at $50 a week in March.
And not only that, Ash, if you then if you're doing 12-month leases and you've increased it 6 months, that next period you're going to have to renew the lease, and remember to do that 6-month. Is that making sense? The 6-month increase in the middle of that period again.
Yeah.
So probably what you would want to be doing is doing a 6-month lease to bring you back in line with your rent increases, which again is, additional costs to the landlords and that kind of stuff. So you're absolutely right. Having that thought, having that conversation with the property managers about those increases.
Yeah, 100%. I would do exactly that, bring it back in line for the rent increases, just to make it easier. So that's the biggest thing I really want people to know, your investors to know, and for you to know of that one. And again, as a buyer's agent, you might want to send out a bulk email to all your clients. Maybe you include this video to your clients just to say, hey, here's some extra information about the new changes. Make a note, if you have got a lease that's got a rent review in, like, get on top of that, give that extra information to your clients that you've got in WA so they know this, because it's really important that they are educated as well. And it'll make you look good as a buyer's agent, like giving them the extra information, like you're on top of it. So you're welcome. Okay, let's talk about the pets. Now, in 20 odd years, have only had 2 pet damage issues. Both involved cats. I've not had any other pet issues. What are your thoughts on...
Where are your pets? They're all very well behaved. Okay. Look, it does bring up a lot of emotions, this, because I am a pet lover, and I absolutely believe that, I think it's the stats are something like 60% of tenants have pets, right? So we know that we have to have pets at the property. However, I have seen horrific damage from dogs. I have seen they're chewing the wooden windowsills. I've seen scratches on tiles where they've been locked in the laundry, and scratches on the doors. So there are damages that can come from pets, but there are damages that can come from children, right?
And adults.
These are homes, and damage can occur. So I'm not sort of overwhelmed by the thought of pets being, non-negotiable. I think that moving forward, you know, people have pets. We just have to, you know, roll with that. I think my piece of advice to investors going forward is to have a look at their landlord insurance policy and make sure that their landlord insurance policy covers for pet damage. And if you've done that, then you know, I mean, I'm not saying it's 100% foolproof, but you're covering yourself for instances of pet damage. I mean, like you say, Ash, the cats and the cat urine is probably one of the hardest things to deal with. And it's so difficult because it's not visible. And you have to do all the extra steps to actually prove it and find it. And that is where you need, like I say, a policy like this to actually be your safety net.
So this is a policy with PI Plus. So we can have a look here. We've got damage by pets. It's $5,000. Fumigations $5,000. Do you know? I don't want to say it wrong, but so previously the bond, like the pet bond, is $260 in WA, and we are able to use the actual 4 weeks bond now for pet damage, aren't we?
Yeah, well, you can use the 260 as well. I mean, it is saying that it only used to be able to use for fumigation, but you can use that for damage now. I mean, 260 is not going to cover you for much, but yes, we can use it for pet damage as well.
Okay, so yeah, so this policy, for example, has 5,000. I would, if you have insurance, not this is an insurance talk, but if your client has insurance with like companies like HBF, RAC, Amy, Allianz, things like that, I would just always compare it against a policy like this, which is a specialized real estate policy. There's PIP, EBM, Terry Shear. There's a few of them around there. I've just pulled this one up because it's the easiest. Just compare it against here, because what you'll also find is that these don't have excesses. So if you have a look, like there's no excess on loss of rent, no excess here, and then small excesses for other things as well. So very minimal. This is very minimal in compared to some of the in comparison to some of the policies that I've seen. So that is the little tip there. My thoughts with the pets is what I'm really concerned about, and I want your clients to be aware of, is that if they're presented with applications, and let's say they've got 3 applications and, you know, 2 of them have got pets and 1 of them doesn't have pets. What I'm concerned about is that if there are some owners that really, really don't want pets and they go ahead with the application that says no pets, the tenant can, and there's no rule on this, the tenant could, after even probably 2 weeks, email the property manager and say, hey, I want to actually get a cat or a dog. It's going to be a very awkward situation for all involved, because we all know that the tenant knew that they were going to have that. They're just, you know, trying to get their application through. You are going to have that, be in that awkward situation where you're going to probably not have a lot of choice. And for me, I think that, like, I'm feeling right now that I would maybe rather go ahead with an application that's disclosed the pets, because at least I know what type of pet, the age, and a little bit more information about it. That's just sort of what's going through my head. What do you think about that, Deb?
Yeah, definitely. I think that's going to happen, Ash. You know, you may choose an application with no pets, but that's not to say that like you say, a couple of days after moving in, they submit their written request. So it's a 14-day written request for the pet, and then the owner has that right to reply within the 14 days. But the only reasons that they're going to be able to refuse it is, like it says, if there's a council bylaw, if there are strata bylaws where they're not allowed to have pets, and yeah, that really is going to be about it, in my opinion. You know, somebody said, oh, what happens if my my owner has a really, is allergic to dogs and they're going to be returning to the property. I think you'd be hard pressed to get that through the commissioner. And again, we don't know until it's tested, but that's my general feeling, is that we're really not going to be able to refuse on something like that. But I think ultimately we need to just get our heads around. Everybody needs to get our heads around. There will be a pet at your property.
Pick your battles.
Yeah.
I've heard that the same thing, because I was thinking about that. If an owner is highly allergic, that I don't think that's going to get through. The other thing is that that we've discussed in our team is, if you have an apartment or if you have a little villa, and pets are allowed in them, who are you as an investor or as a property manager to decide whether the house or the size of the courtyard is appropriate? So, for example, you've got a property that's only got a small courtyard and someone's got a larger dog. As a property manager, as an owner, you might say, well, the house just isn't suitable for a large dog. However, that tenant may walk that dog 3 times a day. Everywhere else in the world, people have pets in apartments and in units. I don't know whether, even though we all hold our own opinion on whether that's suitable or not, and I personally wouldn't do it, that's a very personal choice and it's very subjective.
I had exactly that. I had a property here in Baldivis, which is they sometimes use a lot of the land for house, which leaves very little back garden, and it was just a brick paved back garden, and they had a dog, and it's quite an active breed. And I, with my biases, went to the owner and said, "Oh, we've got this one, and we've got this one, but they've got a dog." And she said, "We're Japanese. We live in high-rise apartments and we have pets in," she very quickly put me back into my place, and it kind of opened my mind, and I was like, well, yeah, who am I to say? And I actually questioned. I said, there isn't really anywhere for the dog to do their business. And they said, we take it out. First thing in the morning, my husband goes on a run and he takes the dog on a long run. He said, she's actually in real estate herself. She's back at the house a couple of times a day and takes them out to the park, and they take her for a family walk at the evening. So yeah, I was kind of judging that situation. And the owner actually educated me and said, no, we're happy with that.
Yeah, definitely. So I guess the tip out of this one is to have those conversations with your investors, get them comfortable with pets, especially if you're a buyer's agent that specializes in new builds. And I get it. Like, you've got a brand new house, your client's got a brand new house, they don't want a pet in there. I get it. But keep this in mind when processing applications, particularly for like those new builds, that if you do get an application with someone with a little tiny Maltese dog and someone with no dog, I would probably be comfortable taking the Maltese dog that I know is probably not going to do anything, and not take the risk of someone that doesn't have a dog on an application, but down the track decides to get a German Shepherd. So that's
another thing, Ash, that you could, if you are, for investors, is to think about your floor coverings.
Yeah, good point.
Really, what if you're, don't put carpet in places where carpet doesn't need to be, and think about really hardy, even tiles sometimes can, the scratches on the tiles can show. So a vinyl, floorboard that has a sort of textured look, and a patterned look as well, that might be more beneficial. So I would be, if I was an investor, even if you haven't got it, maybe you're purchasing established and you haven't, what is your next step when you do need to replace that flooring because we need to accommodate pets? So I'd be thinking about that as well.
Such a good point. Yeah, vinyl floor planks are the bomb. Like, they're so good.
I'm looking at mine now.
They last
I got mine because I had 2 dogs and 2 children. So
yeah, do you know, we actually renovated our office back in 2010, and 2 days after we had renovated our office with the commercial grade vinyl floor planks, we had the 2010 hailstorm, and it completely flooded. Like, I'm talking knee-high flooded our office, and those vinyl floor planks did not miss a beat. They were perfect, no insurance claim, no nothing. They were good as gold for the next 10 years. So they withstand like even floods and stuff like that. So they're
Yeah.
an excellent. It might be a little bit more expensive at the start, but long term, absolutely.
Yeah.
What did I want to ask about? Oh, just a reminder that if you do, if your clients get an application or a request for a pet, just a reminder that an owner can go back and just put a condition. So, for example, they might want to say, yes, you can have a pet on the condition that you provide a yearly carpet cleaning receipt, like to clean the carpets. So something like that, you can go back with a reasonable condition. And I feel like that's a reasonable request. There was in here, where did it say? Oh, I don't know. I mean, I'm just throwing this out there, but the landlord may also place reasonable conditions on the pet, such as that it must be kept outside. I mean, let's be sensible. We can't monitor that. The dog's going to be inside. Like, I personally wouldn't worry about something like that. That's me.
Yeah. The amount of times people have said, yes, they can have a pet, but they have to keep it outside. I'm like, okay, we can write that into the lease, but how are we ever going to police that?
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah. So that's just that little add-on for that one. Okay, we are nearly sort of at the end of these ones. Home Sweet Home starting in July. Do you know, can I just say, when I see things written like this, like to help the rental feel more like a home, and we're wanting renters to really treat it like their own home. But this little thing inside my brain goes, yeah, but we want the tenants to treat it like their own home, but they're also not willing to, change that little washer or change that little bit of silicone, as if it was their own home, are they?
Yeah.
Like it's like
Screw the toilet roll holder back on.
yeah, exactly. That's right. With a little screwdriver, like they're not so like which way do you want it? Do you want to treat it like your home and do those little things, or do you not? Anyway,
Yeah.
a little rant, but so the minor modifications basically is going to allow tenants to hang pictures on walls, put up fly screens, water saving shower heads, planting a vegetable garden. I mean, like, I would have always let them do a vegetable garden, hang pictures on the wall, but with this though, a couple of things that your investors should be mindful of, or maybe take into account, is again, you can still put conditions on it, but you can, and for example, hanging pictures on a wall, my thoughts have always been that that's fine, but I don't want a cluster of photos. So you're allowed to put one hanging point per wall, maximum two per room, for example. That would be a type of condition. But going back to those buyers agents that are buying new homes for clients, something that you might want your investors to be mindful of is that maybe you actually get them to get professional hanging points put up in the house where you want them to be before you actually rent it out, so that the tenants don't have to have that conversation with you and potentially do it themselves if you're worried about your walls. What do you want to add on to this?
I think that is a great suggestion. The amount of times I've heard where the tenants have put, they've put the picture hooks up, then they've been told to make good, so they've taken it out, patched up, then the next person's come in, then they want to put picture hooks up. I mean, for goodness sake, and when you're opening it up to tenants being able to put them up, things can go wrong, right? You put a little nail in the wall, they could hit a water pipe or whatever. I think it's an excellent idea. Have somebody attend the house, have your property manager go, these are the natural places where we would hang something, because we do want to hang things on the wall, right? You can't just have blank walls for the 12-month tenancy, the 24-month tenancy. So I think that's a great suggestion. Maybe think about that in a brand new house. Let's go round, let's put these hooks in, so that things can be hung there, and then there is no need to ask for it, there's no need to change it, there's no need to make good, because the make good can cause problems as well.
Absolutely.
Sometimes they take them off, they slap a bit of filler in and then patch it with a paint that maybe was the same 5 years ago, but now you've just got a little white speck in your wall, and it could cause more problems than it's worth. So I think that's an excellent idea for the new build properties, is to actually just have them pre-done.
Yeah. So as a buyer's agent, have those conversations with your clients when you're, if you're working with the builders as well. And yeah, Deb, exactly what you said. The make good is actually, I think, where the damage of the property
Yeah.
is, not actually in the actual hanging point. And where this rule is really fair, and I think best practice would have come in for most good property managers, is that if someone wanted a TV bracket or someone wanted to secure a shelf, or they were concerned about something falling on their child, then they would always have asked to do that anyway. So
Yeah.
I probably the biggest question whenever I talk about this with clients is people say, "Oh, so can my tenant paint the walls, like the ceiling black, for example?" And then they say, "Well, how are we going to get it back?" Because obviously, if you paint it black, to get it restored back to white would probably take a bit of effort, and you might always see that black come through. My thoughts to that are, I don't know. I would personally test the waters with this, and I would say, listen, we don't mind you painting we don't mind you painting like a little girl's room pink, for example, or a feature wall pink, and then restoring it back to normal afterwards. But I don't know, I would probably question like something like a black ceiling and decline it, and let that go through to the commissioner,
Commissioner.
for, is there really a need? Because what I'm concerned about is that tenants are just going to be painful just to to have the argument. That's what I'm worried about. And just to be argumentative by saying, I want to paint the ceiling black, just to see how much they can stretch you. That's my thoughts on it. Whether or not you could get away with it, yeah,
Your experience, Ash, how often are tenants actually painting rooms?
they don't want to
Doesn't
spend money
happen
on it.
that often, right? And I don't think that it would be I also say, minor modifications. Painting something black to me doesn't seem like minor, but if a tenant wanted to just do it anyway, we'd only notice it on the next routine inspection and we'd have to deal with it. So it's maybe putting more sort of structure around it. So if they want to do it, they request it. If we say no, it goes to the commissioner and the commissioner makes the decision.
Yeah, absolutely. That commissioner is going to be very, very busy, aren't they?
That's my only concern with this whole thing, is what have they put in place? Because not commissioner, it has to be commissioners, and how many. So my only sort of concern with all of this new legislation is how quickly are those queries going to be dealt with?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's
My also one of my concerns is that property managers, like sometimes they can be bad at not checking their inbox. And if they get these pet request forms and things like that, and they have a time frame they've got to respond, my concern is that property managers who don't have a good time management or good inbox management, they're going to overlook them and they're going to get into a pickle. That's one of my concerns as well.
Yeah. Well, that's why they have to come to me to manage their property, because I won't miss them.
That's exactly right. You got no one else to blame.
Exactly.
I like that, Deb. Good point. Good point. So we've got the other ones that are coming, which we're not going to sort of go into, but this is such a good website to, it's clear. It's going to help you as a buyer's agent show your clients what's happening. Share this video on here, but share the video that Deb and I have done as well, which goes through things that as property managers we're concerned about, and as property managers what we're not concerned about, because it hopefully will answer a few questions for people. And you're always welcome, if you just want a second opinion, just to reach out to Deb or reach out to me, and we can sort of talk you through them as well. But I guess at the end of the day, the changes are, number one, best practice in both of our opinions, and also hopefully going to sort of just teach the landlord that they don't really maybe need to stress about things they were stressing about before. We're pretty relaxed, aren't we, with them?
Yeah, I would definitely, the biggest thing I'd be educating the landlords is, if look at policies for pet cover That would be my number one. Have a plan for when you do need to replace floorings, that you're looking at something that is hard wearing. And rent increases, be mindful that we're only going to be doing it once in every 12 months. So if you've got, you know, forecasts for your income, your revenue, that kind of stuff, you know, just be mindful to work that into your forecasts. But other than that, they're really not anything that would be massively concerning.
Yeah, amazing. Thank you, Deb, so much for sharing all that. It's really great to be able to bounce those concerns off another property manager, so that yeah, your investors are, you know, getting an opinion, I guess, from two of us, which is really great. And then we'll do this again when the next sort of changes come out as well, and go through those same things: the laws, what an investor should know, what possible things could come up that they should maybe just mentally prep for as well. And then, of course, at any time anyone wants to reach out to Deb or myself to go through anything, then please do that. I'll make sure this is circulated to the buyers agents that didn't make it. And if you've got any colleagues that you think would also benefit from watching or listening, please let us know and we'll get a copy to them as well. Deb, thank you so much. I'll chat to you later.
Thanks, Ash. See ya.